O original person, because you desired to execute the creation, you created us through the three modes. But because we have separate interests from you, we are in the incapacity to create the universe for your pleasure. Purport. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, in this verse, the demigods express their suffering of not being able to serve correctly the Lord. They declare that nothing happens in their enterprises. Although they were created by Him, that they desire to create, they were manifested from material influences that are different. It is especially for this reason that they have a different nature, that they are disunited, and that they cannot subcreate the universe, which is just like a toy for the Lord.
Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityananda Namaste Sarasvati Devi Kauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sanyavadi Prachachari Shikarine Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Sarasvati Tirani Shiva Shabana Vire Vidaitaya Kripataye Krishna Sambandha Vegana Daine Pavade Namaha Madhujvara Premadya Shirupanu Bhavatira Shigura Karuna Shakti Vidaya Namaste Gauravani Shimurtaye Ninakarine Rupanu Gaviruda Chasidam Namo Gura Kishoraya Satchatiraya Mukhaye Vipalambara Sambhuri Padam Pujaye Namaha Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Satchitananda Namine Gaura Shakti Sarupaya Rupalambara Gaura Vipala Bhume Jami Desha Satchanapiya Krishna Vasanvapam Shijaganate Namaha Nala Shastra Vachanate Guru Sattama Sanstapa Manu Shankar Hara Krishna Panda Chakanda Matarigo Andi Pasmatam Nahu Vachijiva Oparakamo Vamchakan Paktaruga Chakripa Sindhu Vyacha Patitanam Pavaligo Vishna Vidam Chayo Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shiva Dvaita Shiva Sadhu Bhakta
Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Krishna in the Gita explains that there are two types of beings, the Asuras and the Devas. Srila Prabhupada explains that the Asuras, they are persons who do not follow the injunctions of the Lord and who do not recognize the Lord to be their master. Whereas the Devas, they accept the injunctions of the Supreme Lord and recognize Him to be their Lord and Master. But because they received the influences of the material nature, they stay conditioned. And in this condition, naturally, there is an influence of ignorance and passion, even if their conditioning is rather in goodness. There is naturally passion and ignorance. Otherwise, it will not be conditioned souls. Condition means ignorance, passion, and goodness mixed together.
On peut être plus dans l'ignorance,
We can be more in ignorance, more in passion, or more in goodness, but there's a mix of the three.
Donc,
So,
ce verset
this
est très
verse
intéressant
is really interesting
parce qu'il révèle
because it
l'insatisfaction.
reveals the insatisfaction.
Bien que ce soit des dévots,
Although
ils
they
ne
are
peuvent pas
devotees,
servir le Seigneur purement.
they cannot serve the Lord purely because they have desires.
Donc,
So,
c'est les désirs
there are desires.
qui nous empêchent de servir le Seigneur.
Desires are forbidding us from serving
Parce
the
que
Lord.
les désirs sont signes de
Because
passion.
desires are a sign of passion and
Je
ignorance.
suis d'accord.
I am the body,
Et
and
mon but est de satisfaire,
my goal is to
les
satisfy my desires.
d'avoir de l'argent,
To have money, to
d'avoir
be
des
happy,
choses,
to see
mais
things.
tout
But
est pour moi,
everything is for me.
ou très peu.
Or at least a little bit.
À partir de là,
From there,
puisque le Seigneur,
since the Lord,
il n'accepte que la pure dévotion.
He accepts only pure
On ne peut
devotion.
pas voir
We cannot see
la forme du Seigneur, ses attributs.
the form of the Lord, His qualities and His pastime. We cannot understand anything. But we stay unhappy.
Parce que l'âme,
Because the
elle a
soul
été manifestée
was
par
manifested
lui
by Him
pour son plaisir.
for His pleasure.
On n'a pas une vie séparée du Seigneur.
We don't have a life separated from the
Lorsqu'on
Lord.
vit séparée de
When
lui,
we live separated from Him, we suffer.
ça ne peut pas être autrement.
It cannot be any other way.
Et suivant la propension
And according to the propensity
de la condition matérielle où on est,
of the material condition in which we are,
on peut le voir.
we can see Him.
Si on est dans la vertu.
If we're in goodness,
Mais si on est
but
plus
if
dans
we are
l'ignorance
too much
et la
in ignorance
passion,
and
on peut même
passion,
pas s'apercevoir
we cannot
de
even perceive that we are suffering.
ça. Brahma explique.
Brahma explains this.
Brahma explique
Brahma
que
explains
le symptôme de l'être humain, c'est de
that the
penser que son
symptom
malheur, c'est le bonheur.
of the human being is to think that his unhappiness is happiness. Can you
C'est
believe
quelque
it?
chose qui est quand même
It is something
inconcevable.
that is inconceivable.
Parce que
Because
il est conditionné principalement par la passion.
one is conditioned mostly in passion,
Alors il ne peut pas comprendre.
and then he cannot understand that one
Il n'a pas
suffers,
de solution.
and he doesn't find any solutions.
Lorsqu'on devient
When we become
plus conditionné par la
more
passion,
conditioned by goodness,
à ce moment-là, on voit la
then
nature de ce monde.
we see the nature of this world.
Et dans la situation où on est.
And in the situation in which we are, then we want to get out of it. Otherwise, it's not possible. The one is too much conditioned by ignorance and passion, he cannot have this inspiration of the heart. Save me.
Je suis dans une telle condition.
I am in such a
Alors, il
condition.
pense, tout va bien.
He thinks, yes, everything is all right. There's the sun, the beach, the birds.
C'est merveilleux.
It's wonderful.
Il ne voit même pas qu'il va
The
revoir-
person doesn't even see that he will have to
reprendre
take birth again and
l'essence.
again.
Il perd complètement son temps.
So that one is losing its time.
Il peut pas
The person
reprendre.
cannot see, cannot
C'est impossible.
feel.
C'est un
It's
état
impossible. It's a state
d'ignorance totale.
of complete ignorance.
On ne peut rien comprendre de sa
We
réalité,
cannot understand anything about our internal
de sa
reality,
position éternelle,
of our eternal
de sa
position,
relation avec le Seigneur.
of our relationship with the Supreme Lord.
Et donc, naturellement,
And so naturally,
si Krishna est
if
miséricordieux,
Krishna is merciful,
alors il doit faire un arrangement.
then he must make an arrangement.
Il doit pouvoir créer une situation.
He must be able to
pour
create a
sauver
situation to save his devotees.
Et c'est lorsqu'il s'associe
And it is
avec
when
les
he
purs
associates
bhaktas
with pure bhaktas
qu'il entend
that he hears
sur la nature de la dévotion.
about the nature of
Il
devotion, that he
peut
understands
se tromper.
that he is
Il peut
deceiving himself.
discriminer dans sa vie.
He can discriminate in his life, otherwise it is not possible.
Puis la Vishwanath Thakur explique
Srila Vishwanath
que
Chakravarti
c'est
Thakur
simplement
explains that
par
it is simply
l'intelligence vertueuse qu'on peut discriminer.
by the intelligence and goodness that we can discriminate.
L'intelligence vertueuse, elle vient comment?
But intelligence and goodness comes how? It comes
Soit par l'inspiration du Seigneur suprême,
either through the intervention of the Supreme Lord,
Dieu a des bénéfices,
due to previous lives,
et surtout
but especially
par l'association de purs monde.
by the association of pure devotees.
Parce que lorsque notre association,
Because when
avec
our
les
association is with
dévots,
devotees,
alors on devient.
then we become a devotee.
Qu'est-ce que Chaitanya Mahaprabhu
What did Chaitanya Mahaprabhu say?
Le symptôme d'un dévot,
The symptom of a devotee
c'est qu'il rejette un satsang,
is that we reject a
la
satsanga,
mauvaise association.
bad association.
Qu'est-ce que c'est la mauvaise
What is bad association?
C'est des personnes
It are
qui sont
persons that are
oublieux de leur nature.
forgetfulness of their eternal nature. Forgetful.
Lorsqu'on est associé avec
When
des
we
gens
are
qui oublient leur
associated
nature
with
éternelle,
people who forgot their eternal nature, what happens?
on oublie notre
We
réalité.
forget our reality.
Si on s'associe
If we
avec des
associate with
personnes qui
persons
sont conscients
who are
de leur
conscious
réalité
of their
éternelle,
eternal truth,
alors on se souvient de
then
qui
we remember who we are.
c'est pas compliqué.
It's not complicated.
C'est pourquoi les Vaishnavas,
This is why the Vaishnavas,
ils créent
they create
des endroits, des mats,
places, mats,
des missions
missions,
où on
Where
peut avoir l'association.
we can
avec les
have
Vaishnavas.
the association with Vaishnavas.
Sans l'association de dévots,
Without the association of
on ne peut
devotees,
pas avoir de goût dans,
we cannot have taste in the holy name,
dans l'adoration du
in
Seigneur.
the worship of the Lord.
Que dire d'avoir un souvenir
What to
de
speak of
notre
having a remembrance of our reality.
réalité? Impossible.
It is impossible.
C'est pourquoi Srila
This is why
Prabhupada
Srila Prabhupada,
a mis tant
he
d'énergie
put so much energy
pour créer
to create
une situation où on peut
a situation
avoir l'association.
where we can have the association of devotees.
L'association des dévots, c'est la
The
chose
association
la
of
plus
devotees is the most precious thing.
précieuse. Même
Even
juste un instant
just one moment
dans l'association de pure
in the
Vaishnava,
association of pure Vaishnavas
donne le grand.
gives the greatest benefit.
C'est ce que le Srimad Bhagavatam
This is what Srimad Bhagavatam explains.
Or, les deux
However,
milieux
the demigods,
ont un regret.
they have a regret.
C'est toi qui l'ai fini. Bien que le Seigneur
Although the Lord
leur donne des instructions,
gives them instructions,
bien que le gourou leur donne des instructions,
although the Guru gives them instructions, they cannot follow them.
ça s'applique aussi au gourou.
It applies also to the Guru.
Ils ne peuvent pas le suivre,
They cannot follow
parce
it
qu'ils ont des désirs.
because they have desires.
C'est pas possible.
It's not possible.
Lorsqu'on a des désirs,
When we have desires,
alors on ne peut pas suivre
then we cannot follow
les instructions
the instructions
des Vaishnavas.
of the Vaishnavas.
C'est pas impossible.
It is impossible.
On a déjà fait nos plans.
We already made our plans.
On ne suit pas leurs instructions.
We don't follow their
On
instructions.
suit notre plan.
We follow our plan.
Tout est déjà calculé.
Everything is already calculated.
Notre autorité, c'est nous.
Our authority is ourselves.
Donc Krishna ne peut rien faire.
So Krishna cannot do anything.
Krishna, il sauve
Krishna
ceux qui
saves
sont abandonnés,
those who are surrendered,
pas que ceux qui sont les contrôleurs.
not those who are
Si
controllers.
vous êtes un contrôleur,
If you are a
de
controller of your
vie,
life,
vous ne pouvez pas être sauvé.
you cannot be saved.
Vous savez,
You know already.
vous savez,
You know deep within yourself
il faudra
that you will have to take birth again and again and again.
Mais si vous êtes fatigué de ça,
But if you are tired of
vous
this,
priez, que vous
and you
repentez,
pray and you repent,
alors Krishna devient miséricordieux.
then Krishna becomes merciful.
Oh,
Oh,
il a appris à ça.
he learned his lesson.
Maintenant, il est capable.
Now he is able to listen and follow.
Et à ce moment-là,
And then
le maître spirituel peut donner des instructions.
the spiritual master can give
Ça,
instructions.
avant, il peut pas.
Otherwise, before he cannot.
Il entend simplement
He hears simply
et il dit d'accord.
and he says, okay.
Parce que s'il ne dit pas d'accord,
Because if he doesn't say all right,
alors le disciple le rejette.
then the disciple rejects him.
Donc c'est une forme de miséricorde.
So it's a form of mercy.
Parce que de cette manière-là, le disciple
Because in this way, the
il ne fait
disciple,
pas gourou apparat.
he doesn't do guru
Il ne
aparad.
rejette pas le gourou.
He doesn't reject the guru.
Il n'atteint pas la pure dévotion.
He doesn't attain pure devotion in this life.
Mais
But
au moins, il
at
ne
least
fait pas
He doesn't
d'offense.
make
Il va
offenses
faire que
that will make
dans
that
plusieurs vies, il aura un souffle.
in many lifetimes he will have to suffer the reactions of his actions.
Mais lorsque le disciple est
But when the
repentant,
disciple is repentant
et que ça reste
and it stays
comme quelque chose de fixe,
like
alors
something
le guru
fixed,
peut enseigner.
then the guru can teach bhakti.
Et à ce moment-là,
And from there,
alors le disciple, il
then the
accepte
disciple, he
les
accepts
instructions du gourou.
the instructions of the Guru like his own very life.
Et là, il peut se diriger vers la pure dévotion.
And then he can direct himself to pure devotion.
Les choses indésirables
Purify the unwanted things
qui l'empêchent
that are
d'aimer Krishna.
stopping him from loving Krishna and gradually to attain devotion.
Mais
But
il y a le regret.
there's regret.
Et on voit
And we
que les
see
demi-dieux ont ce regret.
that the demigods, they have this
Dû à
regret.
notre position,
Due to our position,
cette forme d'illusion,
this form of illusion,
on ne peut pas suivre les instructions.
we cannot follow instructions.
Donc, suivant nos vies passées,
So according to our previous lives,
on a ces difficultés.
we have this difficulty.
Le symptôme,
The symptom
c'est la naissance.
is birth.
Lorsqu'on est
When
une
we
famille
are-
qui n'est pas pieuse,
Take birth in a family that is not pious.
naturellement, ça veut dire que
Naturally,
dans nos vies passées,
this means that in our previous
on a
lives,
été,
we were not pious,
sauf certaines exceptions.
except certain exceptions.
On voit par exemple Prahlad Maharaj,
We see, for example, Prahlad Maharaj, he was born in a family of demons,
mais il était un pur dévot.
but he was a pure devotee.
Son père était tellement un démon puissant
His father was such a powerful
que
demon
Indra et ses associés,
that Indra and his associates,
lorsque Hiranyakashipu est parti
when
faire
Hiranyakashipu left to make austerities,
ils sont venus
perform
pour tuer.
austerities, they came to kill the child. Can you believe it? The demigods.
Ils sont venus pour tuer.
They came to kill the child.
Et là, Narada Muni,
And then Narada Muni intervened.
bien sûr, il intervient
Of course, he
sur
intervenes
l'ordre du Seigneur Suprême.
on the order of the
L'inspiration
Supreme
du
Lord,
Seigneur Suprême.
on the inspiration of the Supreme Lord.
Et là, il a dit à Indra, il a
And he
dit,
said to
dans ce
Indra,
ventre-là,
he said, in this
il y a un
belly,
grand Vaishnava.
there's a great Vaishnava,
Très grand Vaishnava.
a really, really great Vaishnava.
Et c'était difficile à croire.
And it was difficult to
Mais
believe.
parce qu'ils avaient foi en Narada Muni,
But because they had faith in Narada Muni, they accepted
et ils sont repartis.
and they left.
Ils ont même fait le tour
They even did
de la mère qui portait l'enfant.
they went around in a circle. The mother was holding the child.
Et
Il
donc Narada Muni, il a donné
And then Narada
refuge à
Muni,
cette
he gave shelter to this woman.
femme. Et il a énoncé
And
la philosophie.
he taught the philosophy connected to the Supreme Lord, pure devotional service.
La différence,
The difference
c'est qu'elle n'a rien retenu.
is that she didn't remember anything.
Alors que Prahlad, il a tout retenu.
Whereas Prahlad, he received everything,
La
remember.
disposition était différente.
The disposition was different
Due au conditionnement.
due to the conditioning.
Prahlad Maharaj était un pur dévot.
Prahlad Maharaj was a pure devotee,
Alors que sa mère,
whereas his mother,
dans ce divertissement,
in this
elle
pastime,
avait la nature.
she had the nature of a demon.
Bien qu'elle a accepté le
Although she
refuge de Narada
accepted
Muni,
the shelter of Narada Muni,
mais elle n'a pas pu
but she was not able
comprendre et accepter les
to
enseignements.
understand and accept the teachings.
Parce que naturellement,
Because naturally,
son refuge était
her
Hiranyakashipu.
shelter was
Son
Hiranyakashipu.
attachement était Hiranyakashipu.
Her attachment was Hiranyakashipu.
Mais Prahlad,
But Prahlad,
même dans le sein,
even in the womb of his
son
mother,
attachement était Vishnu.
his attachment was Vishnu.
Donc quand il est né avec le
So when he was born
Il
with
n'était
this
pas
attachment.
identifié à être un démon.
He was not identified to
Et
be
sa
a demon,
fixation était tellement
and his
puissante
fixation was so
que même
powerful
tous les efforts
that even the
d'Hiranyakashipu
efforts of
à
Hiranyakashipu
travers ses enseignants
through
n'ont pas
his,
pu changer
his
son
teachers were not able to change his mentality.
Hiranyakashipu était tellement puissant
Hiranyakashipu was so much powerful
qu'il
That-
pouvait même faire en sorte
he couldn't even make it happen
de faire pousser les céréales
to let
par sa propre
grains
volonté,
grow out of his own will
sans la puissance
without
des
the power of the devas.
démons. Et pourtant, il ne pouvait
And
pas
still,
changer la mentalité.
He was not able to change the mentality.
Les demi-dieux
Of-
chantaient ses gloires.
The demigods were chanting his
À
glories.
un moment, quand il a
At some point,
contrôlé les mondes,
when he controlled the three worlds,
il a mis l'amende, les demi-dieux.
he put on the side the
Ils
demigods
chantaient ses gloires.
who were chanting his
Prahlad n'a
glories.
jamais chanté les gloires.
And Prahlad never chanted
Il le
the glories of
respectait
his
comme
father.
son père, parce que
He
c'était
respected
un
him like his father because he was a
jamais il a
Vaishnava,
chanté Jai,
but never he chanted Jai Hiranyakashipu.
chanté Jai Narayana.
He chanted Jai Narayan.
Donc,
So,
Lorsqu'on est pur,
When we're
on
pure,
dévie pas.
we don't deviate.
On reste fixe.
We stay fixed.
Mais lorsqu'on n'a pas cette
But we don't
connexion,
have this connection.
alors
Then
on est attiré par quelque chose.
we're attracted by something, and after something else, and after something else, and then something else.
Donc, on peut
So,
pas retenir.
We cannot remember.
Parce qu'au fond,
retain.
nous-mêmes,
Because
on
deep
n'écoute
within
pas
us,
pour le plaisir
we
de
don't listen
Krishna,
for the pleasure of
pour
Krishna
le plaisir de Guru.
or for the pleasure of the Guru.
On n'écoute pas.
We don't listen.
On est là pour nous-mêmes,
We're there for ourselves,
pour notre intérêt.
for interest.
Donc,
So,
parce que l'attitude n'est pas
because
bonne,
the attitude is not
on ne
good,
peut pas recevoir
we cannot receive
la réalité du service.
the reality of devotional service, the attitude of devotion.
C'est impossible.
It is impossible
Parce que
because
notre recherche
our search
est basée
is based
sur une autre conception,
on another
sur
conception,
notre propre bien.
on our own happiness.
En réalité,
In reality,
lorsqu'on cherche le
when we search for
la
happiness,
souffrance vient.
suffering comes.
Et les Écritures expliquent
And the scriptures
que
explain
selon notre
that
karma,
according to our
on ne pourra
karma,
pas avoir plus de
we won't be
malheur,
able to have more
plus de
happiness
malheur.
or more
Parce que
unhappiness
tout est déjà déterminé.
because everything is already determined.
Donc celui qui est intelligent,
So the one who is intelligent,
il comprend
he understands
à quoi ça sert.
what is the use.
À quoi ça sert, puisque tout est déjà
What is the
déterminé.
use since everything is already determined?
On ne peut rien changer par
We cannot change everything on our own.
Ça va dans le paysage. On peut simplement s'abandonner.
We can simply surrender to the Lord.
Mais lorsqu'on s'abandonne
But
au
when we
Seigneur,
surrender to the Lord,
est-ce que c'est pour avoir plus de
is it to
plaisir?
have more pleasure?
Non. C'est pour quitter
No,
la
it is to
conscience
leave
matérielle.
the material consciousness
Comprendre notre nature.
and understand our eternal nature.
C'est pourquoi
This is why
même les demi-dieux,
even the demigods,
ils ne peuvent même pas
they
comprendre
cannot even understand
cette situation,
this situation,
cette conscience.
this consciousness.
Il faut une miséricorde.
We need a special mercy.
Sans la miséricorde d'un Vaishnava,
Without the mercy of a Vaishnava,
on ne peut pas
we cannot
ne plus avoir de désir matériel.
not have material desires.
Parce que
Because
lorsqu'on est relié avec le Vaishnava
when we are connected to the Vaishnava
et qu'on a abandonné,
and we're surrendered,
alors on peut comprendre notre
then we can
nature
understand
éternelle.
our eternal
Et à
nature.
ce moment-là,
And then
les désirs par rapport à cette nature,
desires according to this nature,
de donner du plaisir à
to give
Krishna,
pleasure to Radha and Krishna, they appear within us.
et là,
And
la
then
nature de nos désirs,
the nature of our desires are not material anymore,
spirituel.
but spiritual.
Et à ce moment-là,
And from there,
on reçoit la force, le pouvoir
we receive the strength,
pour les accomplir.
the power to accomplish them.
Krishna nous dit personnellement,
Krishna says it
fais ci,
personally.
fais ça.
Do this, do that.
Ou le gourou vous dit, fais ci.
Or the Guru tells you, do this, do
On
that.
a la force.
And we have the strength to do it.
Quelqu'un
Someone
qui est simplement
who is simply
absorbé
absorbed
dans son plaisir,
in his pleasure
il peut
or
pas
her
avoir la force d'accomplir
cannot
quelque
have the
chose.
strength to accomplish spiritual things.
C'est impossible.
It is impossible.
C'est pourquoi c'est dur. Là.
This is why it is hard, spiritual
C'est
life.
tellement dur.
It is so hard.
On prend refuge dans la vie naturelle.
So we take shelter in material life, in our own pleasure,
Parce que c'est trop difficile.
because it is too difficult.
Mais dès qu'on accepte
But
le
as
refuge,
soon as we accept the shelter,
tout devient facile.
everything becomes easy, gradually,
Au point
to the point
qu'on a plus de place pour le désir matériel.
where we don't have any space for material desires, because we see Krishna
Et
everywhere.
lorsque vous ne voyez pas Krishna,
And when we don't see Krishna, only when we don't see Krishna, there are material desires. When we see Krishna everywhere, there's no material desires.
il n'y a pas un choix.
There's no choice.
Soit on voit Krishna,
Either we see Krishna,
soit on voit Maya.
either we see Maya.
Maya, ça veut dire désir.
Maya means desires.
Oh, ce monde est un
Oh,
monde où
this
je vais
world.
pouvoir me réjouir.
It's a world where I will be able to rejoice, to enjoy.
Mais
But
lorsqu'on voit Krishna partout,
when we see Krishna everywhere,
alors on ne veut pas de réjouissance.
then we don't
On veut
want
son plaisir.
enjoyment. We want his pleasure. This is a devotee.
Ça, c'est le minimum.
This is the minimum.
Fixité.
Nishta, fixed. And when we become fixed and taste manifests itself, ruchi, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he says that there's no more lust and anger. These thoughts are not there anymore. We become just directed by the fact of tasting Krishna. We only see Krishna, we only taste Krishna. And it attracts Krishna. And then we attain this stage, Nishtha, Ashakti, where we become attached to the Supreme Lord. We start to feel love for Krishna, and we cannot live without him. Then, the second step is that we become liberated from the three gunas, and we obtain a spiritual form. And there we can meditate 24 hours a day in the sweet lilas of the Lord. The one who has attained such perfection, how would material desires be able to appear? We cannot accept this. In the 11th canto, 2nd chapter, it is explained how such a person who has attained this perfection will be able to have desires. It is impossible. And why do we have desires? It's because we're not conscious of the sweetness of the Lord. So we search for something. We search taste. But if we look closely, every time it is failure. But why do we start again? Again and again? It is ignorance. This is why we have to attach ourselves. When we associate, gradually ignorance disappears. At the beginning it is difficult. When we hear on pure bhakti, we have the impression that we are attacked. All the people who have desires, they think this. But in fact, we say the same thing always. If you read Prabhupada's books, from the beginning to the end, it is like that. If you read the books of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, from the beginning to the end, it is like this. But when we're not situated properly, we feel bad. But when we are well situated, we don't have a desire, it becomes nectar. However, Sharupa Goswami explains, it is the same principle for the Holy Name. At the beginning when we chant, it's difficult. It's like sometimes someone who has jaundice. When he eats sugar, it's really bitter. But the same sugar, it heals jaundice. In the same way, when we hear the glories of the Lord, the glories of pure devotional service, then at the beginning it's difficult, and gradually it becomes nectar. There's no choice. It is a healing. The Guru, it means the one who has the possibility to cut the attachments of the disciple. Material illness is just like a wart. I don't know if you ever had a wart. It hurts. And it eats the skin like a worm. So to heal, we need like a scalpel. Make an opening, take away the pus, and heal. In the same way, when we hear the Vaishnavas, it is just like doctors. They pierce our problem and they heal it. It is important. What is love? It is to let the persons in a situation of suffering by thinking that they are happy, or gradually to heal their ignorance and allow them on their own to attain the mercy of the Lord. So we need, the proof is that even the demigods, they lament.
Les demi-dieux, ils ont en
The
charge
demigods, they are in charge
la création.
of creation.
Ce sont des êtres ultra puissants.
They're ultra-powerful beings, and we see they suffer.
Malheureusement.
Unfortunately, due to our desires, we cannot serve you purely, and it is a suffering.
Et pourquoi ils ont
And why do they
cette
have
mentalité?
this
Parce qu'ils
mentality?
progressent.
Because they progress.
Quand on progresse,
When we
on se-
progress, we lament.
plus on progresse,
The more we
plus on
progress,
se lamente.
the more we lament.
Plus on réalise
The more we realize
qu'on est déchu,
that we are fallen,
qu'on est dévié.
that we are deviated,
On
deviants.
devient tellement humble.
We become so much humble.
Mais
But
moins on est avancé,
the less we are
plus
advanced,
on est fier.
the more we are proud.
C'est pour ça qu'on voit pas.
That's
les
why we don't see the Lord.
C'est pourquoi on peut pas
That's why we
être
cannot be
engagé
engaged in the service of the Lord.
Parce qu'à moins d'avoir
Because
l'humilité,
unless we have humility,
alors on peut pas avoir ce contact.
then we cannot have this contact.
Donc les demi-dieux,
So the demigods,
c'est pas qu'ils ne font pas leur service.
it is not that they don't do their
Parce
service,
que c'est des dévots,
but because they're devotees,
ils se lamentent
they lament
pour avoir
because they're not pure yet, to have a higher stage,
de se libérer.
to liberate themselves.
Même eux, ils se lamentent.
Even they lament.
Oh, quand je pourrais devenir
Oh, when will I be able to become your devotee,
exclusif.
your exclusive
C'est ça que
devotee?
ça explique.
This is what it expresses.
Et on devrait avoir ce
And we
sentiment
should have this feeling
d'humilité.
of humility.
Je désire ce pur service.
I desire this pure devotional service.
C'est ça
This is
notre réalité.
our reality.
Prabhupada,
Prabhupada,
lorsqu'il est arrivé
When he arrived in the West,
il a dit, j'ai aucune
he said,
qualification.
I have no
Je suis
qualification.
le plus bas.
I am the lowest.
Mais parce que mon Guru
But because my Guru
m'a
Maharaj
donné une instruction,
gave me an
je
instruction,
sais que tout sera.
I know that everything will be accomplished.
Il ne s'est pas identifié
He did not identify
celui qui est
himself
en pouvoir.
like the one who is empowered,
Mais comme une personne
but
qui
just
était déchue,
like a person who has
qui
fallen
prenait l'instruction
and who has
qu'on
taken
avait
the instruction of his spiritual master.
à ce moment-là,
From there,
parce qu'il avait la foi, il savait que tout allait se
because he had faith, he knew that everything will happen.
Il savait pas.
How, he didn't know.
Rappelez-vous, il était assis sur un banc, et il y a
Remember, he
un
was sitting on a
religion
bench,
juif qui
and there's a man of a Jewish religion who came, sat down and spoke with him
habillé bizarrement.
because he was dressed weirdly.
Et donc,
And
Prabhupada lui a dit, je suis là
Prabhupada
depuis
told him,
quelques
I'm here since last couple of
jours. Et
days.
il a dit, j'ai une grande
And
mission.
he said, I have a great mission, hundreds of centers, thousands of disciples.
Et l'autre à côté,
And the other next to him, he said, he's a enlightened one.
Il a
And
rien.
he arrives and he doesn't have anything.
Il n'a même pas d'appart pour lui. Mais
Didn't have an apartment for him, but he has hundreds of
Mais en fait,
temples.
Prabhupada mentait
In
pas,
fact, Prabhupada was not lying
parce qu'il savait
because he
que
knew
toutes ces choses allaient
that all these things will happen, will
Or,
manifest.
quand on n'a pas de
However,
foi,
when we don't have faith, we doubt
on doute
de
de la mission du Guru.
of the mission of the
Et
Guru.
les choses sont là.
But things are there, it's just a question of time.
Et donc après,
And so after,
quand il a parlé de
when he
cette
spoke
expérience avec
about this
Prabhupada,
experience with
il a
Prabhupada,
réalisé
he
que
realized
oui, il
that
savait
yes,
déjà le futur.
he already knew the future.
Mais sur le moment,
But on the spur of the
qu'est-ce
moment,
qu'il a pensé?
what did he think?
C'est quelqu'un de bizarre.
He is someone
Pas
weird,
équilibré.
bizarre, he's not balanced.
Et c'est ça la beauté du pur.
And this is the beauty of the pure
C'est
devotee.
bien qu'il soit le plus
It is
humble,
good that it is the most he is the
à la
most
fois,
humble,
il est
and at the
conscient
same time he is
de tout ce qui va
conscious
se
of
passer.
everything that will
C'est
happen.
difficile à comprendre.
It's difficult to understand
L'être qui est pur,
because the being who is pure,
il a
he
une
has
connexion avec quelque chose de
a connection with something so elevated,
Et en même temps,
and at the same time
il y a une humilité.
there's a extreme
C'est
humility.
très difficile à
It
comprendre.
is really difficult to
La
understand.
mentalité d'un Vaishnava.
The mentality of a Vaishnava, really,
Et
really
sans
difficult.
avoir cette
But without
humilité,
having this humility,
hein, on ne peut pas atteindre la bhakti.
we cannot attain
Donc,
bhakti.
cette humilité,
So this
elle vient
humility comes
naturellement
naturally
par une bonne attitude
to a good attitude,
de s'associer avec des gens plus
to
élevés
associate with more elevated people,
et de devenir un
and to become a beggar,
mendier la miséricorde.
to beg for the mercy.
Il n'y a pas le choix.
There's no choice.
Lorsqu'on prend les choses
When we
d'une
take
manière
things
mauvaise,
in a bad way,
parce qu'on se sent super,
because we feel super,
Alors on ne peut pas mendier.
then we cannot beg.
Si on ne mendie pas, on n'obtient rien.
But if we don't beg, we don't receive anything. Nothing.
S'il n'y a pas les pleurs,
If there are no tears,
s'il n'y a pas une
there's no
situation où on se sent
situation where we feel the most fallen and we need help,
on ne progresse pas.
we don't progress anymore.
Les dévots qui
The
progressent
devotees who don't progress, it is because they have
cette attitude.
they don't have this
Vous
attitude
leur
anymore.
dites un défaut,
You tell them a fault and they become
et
angry.
après ils disent
And after they say,
Gurudev,
oh, Gurudev doesn't love me anymore.
c'est la vérité.
It's a reality.
Ça veut dire quoi?
What does that mean?
L'orgueil.
Pride.
On ne peut pas reconnaître
We cannot recognize
notre propre vérité.
our own truth.
On pense qu'on
We
est
think that we are advanced spiritually.
C'est pour ça qu'on peut rien ressentir.
That's why we cannot feel anything when we
Ou
chant,
un tout petit peu,
or a little bit,
rien.
nothing.
On ne peut pas voir,
We cannot have,
on ne peut pas entendre.
we cannot feel, we cannot hear, we cannot touch.
Pour qu'on puisse progresser,
For us to be able to progress,
il faut
we need
accepter qu'on
to
puisse
accept
être
that we can be chastised.
Et même si sur le moment,
And even in
c'est
the spur of the moment it's
on va
difficult,
pouvoir l'accepter.
we must be able to accept it.
Sans ça, on ne progressera
Otherwise, we will never progress.
jamais.
Never, never, never.
Ça sera très,
It will be really, really slow.
Donc,
So,
on doit
we must
accepter de
accept
se reprendre.
to be chastised.
Un jour,
One day,
Prabhupada, il était énervé,
he was disturbed.
et un jeune dévot lui dit, mais Prabhupada,
And a young devotee said, but why are you like losing temper like
Qu'est-ce qu'il
that?
avait, Prabhupada?
Why don't you chant Hare Krishna? What did Prabhupada say? He didn't tell him.
Pour qui tu te prends, toi?
Who do you think you
C'est
are?
moi, l'acharya?
I am the Acharya.
Il avait appelé son chapeau.
What did he do? He took his japa and he chanted.
Si quelqu'un comme Prabhupada peut se faire reprendre,
If someone like Prabhupada can be
pourquoi on
chastised,
ne pourrait pas se faire reprendre?
why we could not be chastised?
C'est pourquoi on doit s'associer.
That's why we must associate.
On doit méditer
We must meditate
sur la qualité des purs.
on the quality of the pure
Et à
Vaishnavas.
ce moment-là, on
And
pourra
then we'll be able to change.
changer.
Jai.